All right, so let's bring in NBA writer Bill Reiter for his thoughts on this. Bill, obviously a bit of a devastating blow here for the Sixers. What's your reaction to James Harden now being on the sidelines for a month?
Yeah, Jeremy, just the bad luck, the nature of how much luck matters in the NBA. Now, obviously, we're not at the end of the season. It's not the playoffs. There's a lot of time for the Philadelphia 76ers to make things right if the next month is rocky. But I can tell you, just having been in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, this is an organization really excited about not just what they built, but Harden in particular, the shape that he was in, the way they thought he'd fit into this team and this offense. And to lose him for a month at a minimum disrupts that rhythm and that chemistry and what they thought they were building. It's not the end of the world because of the timing of the injury, but it's obviously bad news.
In terms of their depth, I mean, how does this affect things on the court? Who's the one that steps in with Harden now out?
So the good news here is one of the questions this season was, can Tyrese Maxey take a step forward? If James Harden is trying to make that comeback at a superstar level, how can they fit together? And obviously, I think they both played really well and they complement each other. But this is a team that believes that Maxey can be a star-level player, can be the number 2 scorer or the top scorer in tandem with Joel Embiid down the line. Down the line just becomes over the next month. They think he can do it. I think he can do it. People around the NBA think he can do it. He's just going to need to step up at the level they need without that safety net that is James Harden, at least for the next month.
Well, and the bad part is they've won 3 of their last 4. They're off to a 4-5 start, but they've won 3 of their last 4. So they were starting to put it together, obviously with Embiid out. And if Harden's out for a month now, that's a significant amount of games. You and I were kind of talking before we came up. There's no easy stretch of games in this Eastern Conference.
There's not, and the East is absolutely and totally brutal. And I'll add this too, the other frustration I know for every GM is they believe 20 to 25 games is where you assess your team, the first 20, 25 games of the season, figure out your holes, what you need to change, what's working or what's not. This makes it really difficult for Daryl Morey, who runs basketball operations in Philadelphia, just to make an assessment of his team, because a big chunk of those 20, 25 games that'll start the season will be without really key pieces that are significant. But again, they have played better, the defense has improved, and I think the question becomes, can they just keep their head above water, be a 500 team or a little bit better? I think they can, Jeremy, but that'll be the challenge, because 1 through 10, 11, there are really, really good teams in the Eastern Conference every single night.
It's a 4-week injury. That's what they're reporting right now, that it's a 4-week injury. But because it's a tendon strain, Bill, I mean, those things can be touchy. I mean, could this be longer? Could the Sixers be looking at a longer period of time without Harden? And if it is a longer-term injury, what does that look like for them?
So obviously I'm speculating here, but that's the first thought that I have, is not just the timeline that is out there, but the fact that James Harden's obviously a little bit older, into his 30s, has had a little bit of history with injuries over the last few seasons. And again, not picking on the guy, has not been in the world's best shape in the past. Has gotten himself into better shape for this season, something even in Philadelphia they were excited about. They talked about in comparison to the last few seasons. And when you're injured and when you're hurt, it's harder to keep the weight off, especially at that age. It's harder to stay in shape. And there's no guarantees, as you said, that it's going to be a timely recovery. We don't know. We'll have to see. But it's certainly a concern, not just over the timeline that we have, but what it just means for James Harden being able to maintain his weight and his fitness at a level where he can just be a consistent force on this team all season.
Bill, when you're looking at the season overall, kind of how it started, I mean, not just the Sixers, but I mean, obviously we've got turmoil with the Nets as well. I mean, they're going through a coaching change. But when you look at the season overall, kind of how things have started, what's your assessment of how things are going so far?
Yeah, a 3-ring circus across the NBA that has obscured some of the excellence. I mean, very quietly, right under the radar, because it's not the big storylines. Luka Doncic is doing, it's early, but ridiculously historical things. It feels like every night he's scoring 35, 40 points and shooting better from 50% from the field. The Milwaukee Bucks are an outstanding basketball team, and if it weren't for Luka, Giannis would be the runaway or early favorite for the MVP. But you said it, the story is dysfunction and the question of dysfunction. What's going on in Golden State? Does the Draymond Green-Jordan Poole thing have anything to do with their lackluster play? How will Boston respond? Not just to Ime Udoka being suspended, but now presumably going to be the head coach of that Brooklyn Nets team that, again, has its own drama playing out again today. Feels like it's every day. The Lakers have drama. They've been better. So I think the story is, in what is one of the most parity-laden seasons I can remember covering, Jeremy, as we sort of project over the course of the season, with so many teams that are out there, having one of your star players go down for a month on the list of problems actually doesn't seem as significant as some of the other things going on out there.
Yeah, it's a drama-filled start to the season, and we'll take it because it gives us lots to talk about. Bill Reiter joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Reacting to the news, James Harden going to be out for at least a month with the Philadelphia 76ers with a foot injury. Thanks very much, Bill. Happy to have you with us. Thanks for hopping on. As we look at the next 5 games for the 76ers, they're already without Joel Embiid. He's missed the last 2 games with a non-COVID-related illness. So getting him back is going to be paramount. As mentioned, they've won 3 of their last 4 games before the Harden injury. They lost their last outing. But now they have the Knicks on Friday, then they have the Suns, and then they have a home-and-home versus the Hawks before the Jazz on the 13th of November.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.